Rosh Hashanah Tall Tale by Eric A. Kimmel, illustrated by Jim Starr. Samson the giant, Big Sam to his friends, looked at the calendar. It's almost time for Rosh Hashanah, the new year. I'd better get started. I need to bake a special challah bread for Rosh Hashanah, said Big Sam. He dug a big hole in the ground to make a mixing bowl. It's still there today. We call it the Grand Canyon. Big Sam filled the hole with a mountain of flour, tons of sugar, barrels of yeast, a lake of oil, thousands of eggs, and a shovel of salt. I'll need water. Lots of it, said Big Sam. He dammed the Colorado River to make it flow through the canyon. It still flows through the Grand Canyon today. Big Sam hiked over to the redwood forests in California. He found a giant redwood blown over by a storm. He whittled it into the shape of a spoon. Big Sam started stirring. He mixed together all the flours, eggs, sugars, yeast, salt, oil, and water. Time to knead the dough, said Big Sam. He lifted the dough out of the Grand Canyon and carried it over to West Texas. He stomped down on the hills, flattened the ground for kneading the dough. Parts of West Texas are still flat to this day. Big Sam laid down the dough and started kneading it. He pushed and pulled. He lifted it up and slammed it down. The dough began to feel light and smooth. Big Sam carried it to the Yellowstone River to place it where the ground steamed and smoked. Big Sam set the dough down near the geysers and let it rise. The dough rose in the warming steam until it was twice as big as before. Big Sam punched it down until the earth shook. He rolled the dough into a long rope, around and around and around, to make a coil. Big Sam let the dough rise again until it was nearly as big as he was. Almost done, said Big Sam. Now I'll brush the challah with egg yolks to make it brown and shiny, and I'll sprinkle it with poppy seeds. Big Sam had plenty of eggs left, but his poppy seed jar was empty. Big Sam ran to the rail yard in Denver. I need poppy seeds. I'll take all you have, he said to the train workers. The train workers shook their heads. Can't help you, Big Sam. We're out of poppy seeds. We're out of everything. Haven't you heard? The Mississippi River's flooded. The rail bridge is out. Nothing's getting through. When will it be fixed? Big Sam asked. The train workers shrugged. Who knows? 3 months. It's a disaster. Big Sam moaned. I can't wait 3 months. It'll be Hanukkah by then. I'd better see what I can do. Big Sam hiked over to the Mississippi River. He saw the high water carrying trees and houses. The railroad bridge had fallen down. The tracks were underwater. Trains lined up along the tracks, unable to cross. Can you help us, Big Sam? The engineers asked. Big Sam waded into the river. Get ready, everybody, he said. When I say go, Big Sam crouched down. He lifted the train tracks and put them on his shoulders. Then he hollered, go! The trains started up one by one. They crossed the mighty Mississippi on Big Sam's shoulders. Everyone cheered for Big Sam. Hip, hip, hooray! Big Sam headed back to the Yellowstone with 2 boxcars of poppy seeds. He broke the eggs into Yellowstone Gorge and mixed them up with his redwood spoon. He pulled a fir tree out of the ground to make a brush. He brushed the egg onto the challah and sprinkled it with poppy seeds over it. He had just enough. I'd better order 3 boxcars of poppy seeds for next year, said Big Sam. Big Sam carried the challah up to Mount St. Helens. He stuck his hand into the crater. It felt nice and warm inside the volcano. Perfect for baking. But Big Sam pulled the top off the mountain, off Mount St. Helens. He gently set the challah in the lava bed. Then he put the mountaintop back on. A challah that big will take a couple of days to bake, said Big Sam. I'll gather some apples and honey while I wait. He went to his orchard. The trees were full of juicy red apples. Streams of honey flowed from the beehives. We've been busy, the bees buzzed. Good job, bees, said Big Sam. We're sure to have a happy, sweet year. Big Sam came back a few days later to check his home. There it was, beautiful, golden, enormous. That's enough for everybody. Let's celebrate the new year. Come and eat, Big Sam hollered. Two bald eagles circled Big Sam's head. Not so fast, Big Sam said. The eagles called. You dropped the mountaintop on our forest. You knocked over trees. You flattened our hills. You blocked our rivers. Didn't you think about the creatures who live here? What will we do now? Big Sam felt bad. He thought of the destruction he caused without thinking. I'm sorry, he told the eagles and all the other creatures who had lost their homes. I forgot that Rosh Hashanah is about mending the world. Whatever I did wrong, I'll make right. I'll do it now. Big Sam rolled up his sleeves. He planted trees and flowers in the Grand Canyon, wherever trees and flowers could go. He filled the flat Texas prairie with wildflowers and grasses. He cleared away the boulders that blocked the rivers. He dug and cleaned and planted until the forest looked away it had before. Thank you, Big Sam, said the eagles cried as they flew over their nest. Thank you for letting me make our world better, Big Sam said. Now let's eat. People came from all over to join Big Sam. Paul Bunyan hiked down from the north woods with his blue ox. Babe Peckus, Bill, and Slewfoot sure rode up from Texas. John Henry, the steel-driving man, brought his whole family from West Virginia. Annie Christmas and her crew pulled their flatboats all the way up Mississippi River. They all came to share Big Sam's challah, to eat apples and honey, and to celebrate Rosh Hashanah together. Shana Tova, said Big Sam to his friends. Here's to a happy and sweet year for us and for everyone all over the world. The end.